welcome to the PopNerdery Podcast. This is the show that is nerdier than writing an algorithm to predict all future arbitrary Netflix Marvel casting announcements. If this is the first time you are joining us, welcome. This is a place where you're allowed to have an opinion on anything in pop culture, but you gotta have more than just a little bit to say. So we'll pick out some of the things that have us talking this week in the headlines. We'll do a deep dive, and then we will give each other and you, the listeners, our pop culture recommendations. I'm your host, Brent, and with me, as always, is Dave, the Vinnie Griffin to my Brian Griffin. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, buddy? If we had that algorithm, we wouldn't have missed that Iron Fist announcement a couple weeks ago.
Yep, whoops. Still working on the calculations for that. We'll get there. And maybe the first one to get there will be the Gil Gunderson to my Lionel Hutz. Toph, what's up, buddy?
I'm glad that all the time that I've spent doing math, granted it's not math that has anything to do with this algorithm, but just, math in general, hasn't gone unnoticed.
As long as you're not doing meth, I think we're all okay with it.
My attorney isn't present, so I'm going to get back to you on that.
Deal. No problem.
Speaking of getting back to us, you got a couple different ways that you can interact with these fine gentlemen. The first is on the Twitters, at PopNerdery, PopNerdery. Comment as things as they happen. We sometimes trend hyper-locally, specifically in the office in my house, not usually outside of that, but sometimes in that hyper-local space. You got a couple different ways you can listen to the show. The first is the iTunes. Fire up that podcast section, go to the search box, type in PopNerdery, love us, rate us, review us, subscribe us. Like a warm puppy on a cold night will never be unappreciated under your sheets. Consensually. The second is on the website. We archive all of our episodes there. We argue in the comments. We sometimes forget that that's the thing that exists, and we're going to try to maybe do more stuff there.
Good point.
Starting tonight.
Right now. I'm commenting on so many things with hot takes. The third and final way to listen to the show is to write down your best guess of what percentage by volume Wolverine is made up of whiskey if you were to wring him out, write it on an index card, and mail it to Dave Boltz, and he will come to your house and podcast live over your shoulder.
Yeah, whoever gets it closest, I will be there, right there, to podcast over your shoulder. All right, gentlemen, this week is kind of a slow week for news. We kind of teased it last week. Our B segment this week will be a discussion about animated film, which I cannot wait for. But first, we'll talk a little bit of news. We do have Daredevil launching in a week. We have Batman v Superman launching in about 2 weeks. So it's that, if you're a sports fan, this is that time between the Super Bowl and spring training. That's what this time is right now. We have not a whole lot going on. So the first thing that I do want to talk about is today Disney confirmed that Chewbacca will be in the Han Solo anthology movie that they're currently casting. I kind of assumed that this would be true. I think that my thoughts on this would be a Han Solo origin movie cannot really happen without Chewbacca. The two go together, and based on our conversation last week, we are all big fans of the Wookiee.
The heart and soul of that movie. I honestly, I looked at it and, I was like, woohoo! But what? Did we need to announce this specifically? Because
it was a very well done moment, but the fact that they said it makes me feel like that's a great decision.
Better this than not. However, I reread the release 2 or 3 times going, am I missing something in here about what's going to happen with the character? Or, okay, yeah, I think Han should also be in the Han Solo movie.
Wait,
no, you get that
that's
one. That's
brilliant.
You get that one for free.
Last week I made mention of how JJ had a really difficult task making a Star Wars movie that everybody liked, and then I said that Rian Johnson has a very difficult task ahead of him if he plans to try to tie the prequels into this new trilogy. I think the most challenging task would be if I think it's Chris Lord and the other Lego guy, Phil Lord, and Chris Miller, if they try to remake the story of Life Day. That would be the most challenging task.
That's an actual challenge.
Take the Star Wars Christmas special and steal some elements from that. Put Kashyyyk into this movie.
Oh man.
let's
'Cause
get
Han Solo
dead Chewie home.
riding around the galaxy, Han Soloing it up. You know, you could probably make a mediocre movie like that, but you really can't probably make a bad one. You start messing around and bringing in Life Day into the shallow end of this pool, and it's a lot of yellow water.
I'm just saying, when Han meets Chewie for the first time, he also needs to meet Itchy and Lumpy and all of the others from the Christmas.
Beloved Life Day participants.
And scratch each of them under the neck, like he does. Yeah.
God.
Exactly. And we can see that weird Wookiee porno machine where he watched.
Which now?
You've never seen the Christmas special.
Apparently not.
I
missed the Wookiee porn part.
He has a very.
Dave has a bootleg version that didn't include things that were aired on television.
Oh, come on. He has a very orgasmic reaction. I think it's Diane Carroll or somebody like that who's in that special. Lumpy has a tough time, or a good time, I guess, as it were.
Either way.
In other Star Wars news, Hot Carl the Destroyer passed on this information to me, and I don't know how it flew past my radar, but there is going to be an official The Force Awakens documentary that's going to come out, and it's debuting at South by Southwest, which is awesome. We all love documentaries. We especially love... I know Brent is a huge fan of behind the scenes for movies that he loves. So I couldn't be more excited about this.
I think especially if we get the curtain pulled back on, why they made some of the decisions they made, and they talk very deliberately about, matching a lot of the beats from A New Hope and things like that, just to hear them flesh that out a little bit more, I think will be a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, moving on from a galaxy far, far away into the land of Westeros. Game of Thrones Season 6 trailer came out today, and we had that discussion about good trailer, bad trailer, I think back in episode 4 or 5. This, in my opinion, bad trailer. They started out real slow with a acoustic cover of Chris Isaac's Wicked game.
It was really strange.
It was really, really weird. And they started out with stuff that we'd seen a little bit to try and remind you of where we were at in the story. And then all of the interesting stuff was packed into 20-second shortcuts at the very end of the trailer, where you could... the only people who know what's going on are the people who have way too much time on their hands and are screenshotting and analyzing to death. So I know that, Toph, you are a Game of Thrones watcher. Are you excited for the new season? Are you going to catch up prior to?
Yeah, it's always been my hope that I will catch up in time for this next one. That said, you mentioned earlier there's not a lot going on. In fact, March Madness is upon us, so yeah. I have no free time left between now and basically April. So, I'm worried about how I'm going to maintain, parenting once Daredevil's here in March Madness, and I'm trying to get caught up on Game of Thrones, and I also have to try to rear a human being, and I don't know. Something's gonna have to give, and I think it's either parenting or Game of Thrones, and I haven't decided yet.
Well, we will check in with your wife to see what she thinks on that one.
To see how quickly she leaves.
Yes. So you mentioned Daredevil Season 2. We talked about the two trailers. There was a Punisher-focused trailer and an Elektra-focused trailer that we discussed back in episode 14. This week, they released a teaser that was essentially just hey, look at the costumes for these people, which is the perfect thing to do for nerds. I think if you're not going to put out another full trailer, which there's no reason for them to.
No need. Yeah.
The thing launches in 8 days, 9 days, something like that.
Yeah.
This was great, and we got to see the Punisher with the skull on his chest for the first time. We got to see the Elektra with the bandage over her face for the first time, or the bandana. I'm pumped. I'm really pumped about Daredevil.
Yeah, I didn't need any more convincing.
Yeah. We had I went back and watched the last 2 episodes of season 1, and also just rewatched the hallway fight scene from the end of episode 2, just over and over and over again. So I'm pumped about Daredevil season 2.
Gimme.
the trailer that we were most excited about this week, Game of Thrones, was a little underwhelming. This was a kind of rehash for Daredevil. We saw the good stuff a couple weeks ago. The trailer that we were most excited for this week was the new Ghostbusters trailer, which was dropped a couple of days ago. And this is the Ghostbusters that features Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Melissa McCarthy, Leslie Jones, a couple of others. It is we are on this podcast very much of the mind that this is the new Ghostbusters movie. There are a lot of kind of shitbags on the internet that are calling it the Girl Ghostbusters movie. No. It's just a Ghostbusters movie.
It is the fourth Ghostbusters movie.
The fourth Ghostbusters movie, and the trailer was fucking good. And I wasn't necessarily expecting it. I'm not like the biggest Ghostbusters cheerleader. I wasn't expecting to love it, but I did. I liked this trailer quite a bit.
I own 2 different box sets of the Ghostbusters movies. So
you are.
I am, and let me tell you, like, this hit all of the right notes in the exact same way that we've talked a ton about, like, how Daredevil hit the right notes and how Star Wars did, respected what it was doing and built and changed. Like, this did the exact same thing. Like, visually, the ghosts are something you could see, but then they were bigger and more, too. Like, they played within the same universe, but everything looked like it had evolved. But you'd look at both of these things and go, these both take place in the same world, and I'm so excited to see them kick ass in it because, like it was like slipping on a pair of old pants, but then finding $20 in the pocket.
Yeah,
it was comfortable as hell, and I have $20.
And it really felt like when you're watching Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, it felt like watching Bill Murray and Harold Ramis. Like it felt like watching, watching. Not that they're doing impressions or anything.
It's not an imitation.
No, it just felt natural. It felt like watching that movie for the first time.
Well, and something we talked a lot about with Harrison Ford kind of needing to laugh at the movie within the movie and be that kind of conduit to the audience. The scene when they try to figure out who's going to do like the badass line walking into the probably the climactic scene is so perfect because it doesn't feel like with an Adam Sandler that comes with like a needle scratch and then like someone like poops. It actually felt like they're both like they've been like the whole ride over, right? They're gearing up for it in their head. And they're like, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna do it. Okay. And they both fucking step on it. It's just like that felt actually honest. Like that felt like an interaction their characters were meant to have.
All right. Next up we have. I don't know if you guys. I think Topher is, but I don't know about Brent. Are you guys Harry Potter readers? Did you guys read Harry Potter?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Harry Potter is being continued. Obviously, we talked about the Cursed Child or the Cursed Child, the play, and then there's also the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which takes place in early
America,
early 18th century, 19th century America, someplace.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Earlier than now, America, prior to period piece America, is where it takes place. And so J.K. Rowling started today to release short pieces, short stories, I guess, that are kind of prequels to this Fantastic Beasts trilogy to kind of give a little bit more backstory and history on the history of wizarding in North America, which is kind of cool. This is on her website, Pottermore. So if you're a Harry Potter fan and you don't know about Pottermore, you probably should. She puts all kinds of short stories and extra minutia on there. That's where she releases everything.
You can find out what house you're in. I mean, Christ, what do I have to do to convince you to get a Pottermore account already?
Yeah, exactly. Let's go do it. By the way, I'm just going to guess that Topher's like a Ravenclaw.
Totally Gryffindor.
You're Gryffindor. Oh, man.
Yeah, I don't know what I would be. I'd probably be Hufflepuff.
You're Hufflepuff.
Pottermore.com, sir.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm a Gryffindor, but my brother would probably call me a Slytherin. Wah, wah. Supergirl is being renewed for season 2. That's a thing. The good thing about Supergirl being renewed for season 2 is apparently it is good. I don't watch it, but little girls love it, and it's great to have a female superhero who is the star of her own show. Continue to have a show. But for us, based on our conversation last week, I think we're all just excited we might see more Martian Manhunter.
Yes, just keep putting random guest spots in there. I'll keep watching random episodes of Supergirl.
Yeah. So that's Supergirl Season 2, and the last thing I was going to talk about is that there was a brand new X-Men Apocalypse poster released.
Yes.
And I don't usually talk about posters, but
we're going
poster
to.
fan.
Holy shit, this one is good. It is a poster of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It has Apocalypse in the background, and you have in this movie, in this version of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, you have Magneto, Storm, Psylocke, and Archangel. And all of them look like badasses in this poster.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, really, it's good poster design is one in which it communicates things effectively, as this one does. But then the second thing you should do is just when you look at it, you should just go, fuck yeah. And you look at this poster, and the appropriate, explosion that should come out of your face is, fuck yes. Give me that movie.
Yeah, sign me up. Right.
Oh, yeah. They took our feedback, and Apocalypse no longer looks like Ivan Ooze.
Important.
So there's that. Also, no matter what happens in this movie, this is definitely the coolest version of Storm that we're ever going to get.
Right.
Because she has a white mohawk.
Yep.
And she's not Halle Berry. So that's a bonus also.
Aww.
Since we've already seen the trailers, we know that Psylocke is a fucking badass on wheels. Like, yes, everything.
Swords a car in half.
Yes. Just, I want all of this.
Please don't take this as me being sexist, which is a terrible way to start a sentence. But I believe,
it's what the sexist said before he finished his statement.
So I think Olivia Munn has already talked about this the last time they released this photo, because this is a Photoshop of another photo that they've already released. But they Photoshopped her whole body. I don't know if anyone here knows what Olivia Munn actually looks like, but she doesn't
her whole
look.
Body looks like.
Yeah, she doesn't look that comic booky, and you guys know what I'm talking about when I say that, and I'll just kind of leave it there. She doesn't look this Jim Lee drawn in real life.
She's not zero gravity, is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, so that is a thing that always weirds me out when they do it on movie posters, because most of the time it's so damn noticeable.
That's right.
And usually the actress speaks out against it and they hate it.
Yes.
So I don't know why they keep doing it, because it's not like we're not
because
noticing.
Old white men.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is the end of the news. That's it. I wasn't lying earlier at the beginning of the episode, true believers, when I told you that there's just not a whole lot going on right now. So we are going to take a quick break, and we're going to jump into our continued conversation that we started last week about our favorite and the best, I think we're going to argue a little bit, animated films. So we will be right back. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Go to popnerdery.com/audible and sign up for a free trial to support the show and get hours of entertainment.
Audible is perfect for people who don't like to read words and instead want to hear words.
Exactly, Toph. With your Audible free trial, you get 2 free audiobooks to start. When the trial ends, you get 1 audiobook a month for $14.95 a month. You also receive 30% off the price of every additional audiobook that you purchase. You can cancel at any time, and unlike Netflix, you get to keep your books even when you cancel.
That sounds like a better deal than the time that cop caught me listening to 50 Shades of Grey that I got from Audible and let me off with a warning as soon as I promised to put my pants back on.
That's right, listeners. Go to popnerdery.com/audible to sign up for your free trial, and then tell your friends. That way they can share in your audiobook goodness.
Welcome back to Pop Nerdery. Here in the B segment, we are going to infest your brain like meningitis. But like friendly meningitis, not dangerous.
The friendliest.
Yeah. The friendly meningitis. So we're going to pick up and continue on a conversation that we started with last week. We're going to discuss some of our, last week we talked about some of our favorite non-human characters, which was a lovely dovetail to just right into our favorite animated movie. So I'm going to go ahead and preface this, and if I'm incorrect, either of my robust co-hosts here will jump in and correct me. However, I have a suspicion that we are going to be mostly focused on American animation this year.
Yeah. I was gonna preface my picks with that too, because we are going to sadly neglect a lot of anime. I feel like just it's not really.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it on
wheelhouse.
purpose because I don't like it. So, and
Yeah.
this is mine. We're
Yeah.
talking about our favorite animated movies. If you want to have an objective discussion about where Spirited Away, Inuyasha, or anything else falls on this list,
Right.
have that conversation. But I don't like it.
And
it's bad.
I'm not a huge fan either, and I don't know if it's because it's bad or if it's because I'm just not cultured.
I mean, I know I'm not cultured, but I'm still going to assume that it's bad. So
Gotcha.
we are going to, however, leave that subcategory completely off. So, sorry. Just
So,
sorry.
apologies.
I don't really know. I was going to try to offer to, you could suggest things for us to watch, but I've tried. I just don't do it. It's not me. America.
Well, there it is.
Yep. Put that right out there on Front Street. So, as we said last week, discussing favorite non-human characters, this leads directly into favorite animated movies. I have a feeling that this is going to kind of segue between two topics of our favorite animated movies and maybe ones that we found most important, since those tend to also be things you really, really like. Even if you may look at them, I have a couple on my list that are not objectively fantastic pieces of animation, but I feel like were important, and so I like them a lot. So, Brent, you're the one who opened this can of worms last week, so I'm going to give you the floor first before I shout you down later. I'd love to hear your first selection for your favorite animated movie.
So my first selection is the one I brought up last episode, and Toph already hates me because of it and wants a divorce. He's already filed the paperwork. But I am a huge fan of the Pixar film WALL-E. I think it's almost inarguably the best Pixar film because it does such an awesome job commenting on, childlike curiosity. It does an excellent job doing an allegory for, the future of human society and waste and technology and what actually constitutes a life versus just existing, etc. WALL-E is fun. It is big. It is small when it needs to be small, and I can't say enough good things about it.
I'm going to address this not point by point, but do you really? It's not an allegory, right? An allegory is a story with a hidden purpose, like Wizard of Oz is about the gold standard. This puts it on Front Street, right?
Absolutely not an allegory. There's no sneaky message about it.
But
You're absolutely right.
I do think it is an allegory for Christianity.
Okay. Yes.
Ooh.
I've seen that argued. Yes.
I spent a lot of time thinking about why I don't. I like WALL-E. Like, we own it. The kid watches it. I'm not repulsed.
The kid.
It is very much not a film I'd ever sit down and watch. And partially it's because, and Dave and I are well-devoted fans of the Sorkin. We like movies with words.
I do like movies with words.
Silent films. It's the same reason I didn't like whatever, and I'm blowing the title right now, but the recently released silent film that won awards and everyone liked, and I was like,
The Artist.
thank you. It was like, we can do movies with words now, guys. How about we put words in here?
Talkies, yeah.
Them talkies.
I agree a little bit on the words. I will say there are times, and especially in animation, there are times when no words are fine. Like especially the first 10 minutes of Up, the short film that's from Up. There's no words there. Still very powerful.
Absolutely.
I do think that WALL-E is very effective, but I think it's one that if I had a kid, I would watch more of, but as an adult, I watched once and haven't had the urge to go back to. Not to say it's not of quality. It just didn't stick with me in the same way that I feel like it stuck with you. But I did thoroughly enjoy it the first time I saw it.
He's really dipping the toe in both waters, isn't he?
Both sides of this podcast.
No, I understand for all the points you guys just brought up why it may not appeal to you as much as it did to me. But to me, I didn't need the talking. I like the space to let things breathe. I didn't mind the religious allegory, and thank you for calling me out on that, Toph. You're absolutely right. The themes, there's some ones that beat you over the head, and there are some ones that are a little bit more kind of laced within. So
and the ones that beat you over the head are important and should be beaten about people's head, neck, and chest area on a regular basis. So, again, not attacking the premise of the movie at all.
And I think it speaks to something that you find in literature everywhere, because you find it in history everywhere, is that things repeat themselves. History repeats itself absolutely, and
time is a flat circle.
You can absolutely argue that WALL-E might be an ancient, prequel to current human life, and pretend to think of it that way, instead of a futuristic movie, instead of a past movie. So I liked that element of it a lot, and appreciated everything they did, and it's just fun. So
that robot has spunk. I'll say that. Dave, you also have spunk. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I'm actually also going
Brett,
to talk
tell me about your second one before I have to kick it to Dave about his spunk movie.
No, I want to hear about Dave's spunk.
I'm going to talk about a robot that doesn't have very much spunk at all. I'm going to talk about the Iron Giant, which I think is objectively, in my opinion, the best animated movie. I think that it is, especially for our audience, for people who like nerd shit, I feel like it was way ahead of its time, in that it was like a mix of the Max Fleischer Supermans and E.T. and like 5 other things, and Brad Bird directed it, and Vin Diesel
Jennifer
somehow inexplicably is the voice of the Iron Giant.
And Jennifer Aniston is in it, right?
Yeah, and I think that it's a superhero movie before superhero movies were allowed to be great, and it is an animated movie that I am amazed even got made, to be totally fair.
Yeah.
I didn't catch it when it was first released when I was much younger. I caught it when I was nearing adulthood, and it still worked on so many levels. I think it's a really great version of a superhero movie, and that's what we talk about here almost on a weekly basis. So the Iron Giant.
Guys, I've never seen the Iron Giant.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I'm not opposed to it. I've never seen it.
Hey, Toph, all you need to do is walk through your neighborhood to the place with all the overgrown weeds and knock on the door, and there's a certain bearded man in that home that will loan that movie to you.
Yeah.
I can do that. Because at first, everything you described until the beard, I was like, why is my wife opening the door? So far, I'm just in my own backyard right now.
Why does my wife have a beard?
Like, well, tell me more.
Grizzly Adams had a beard. I had the same thing happen
Dave,
to me.
I'm gonna back up to my own sheer ignorance. Can I have an elevator pitch on the plot of the movie?
Yes. It is. I mean, you've seen E.T., right?
Correct.
It's very, very similar, except instead of a tiny brown turd-looking alien, it's a giant metal
giant,
an iron giant, in fact. And a little boy befriends the giant, and a little boy, there's wonder, and there's friendship, and there's sadness and love, and it's a very, very good first try at a superhero movie. I think it came out in '99, so it came out right in that era where we were doing superhero movies but getting them wrong because we weren't prepared.
Bad.
Yeah, we weren't prepared for live action, so I feel like this was allowed to be great because it was animated and because it wasn't going to get a super wide release, and they just let Brad Bird do what he wanted on this one, and that was great. It was really great.
And I think they just announced this fall that they're going to be coming out with a pretty elaborate making of, which again, like we talked about up top, I'm a huge fan of.
That would be so amazing.
and is pretty cool because I think kind of your exposure to it has been similar to some of the online culture. They've been reintroduced to this film, and it's gained a lot of traction as kind of like a cult icon especially in the animated world. So
yeah,
that was a good call out.
Something that was overlooked for a long time.
Yeah.
Toph?
What about you, Toph?
So, I really wanted to go with Nightmare Before Christmas to talk about how much Tim Burton is great, and you guys are both dildos.
It's on my list. It's on my list if you want to talk about it for a second.
No, I'm going to talk about one that I think set the stage for at least probably a lot of the other Pixar movies that can be mentioned, and that's Aladdin. Where
Aladdin.
It's a kind of one of the first real sea changes in, and let's be frank, it's mostly Disney that we're talking about, feature-length animation that are, widespread cultural impact. And
Sure.
Aladdin kind of represents the first sea change between, allowing for, even if you look at, I don't know, like Beauty and the Beast, like there are funny parts to it, but it's still pretty much, the same amount of humor and, not character-driven stuff that like Cinderella was, or Sleeping Beauty, or Snow White. Like those are all kind of the same progression of movie. And suddenly Aladdin hits, and you're still moving the love story. You got the action, you got everything else, but in the center of it is this, humongous star in Robin Williams who absolutely drives that movie and sets the stage for stuff like, Monsters Inc. from Pixar, or from, like The Incredibles, or something else like that, where you're allowed to have huge dynamic personalities who are allowed to be funny on multiple levels, do kind of dual level humor, and really be the heart and soul of the movie, while almost kind of being on the side of it.
Yeah. I've never really thought of it that way, but you're right. Aladdin really is the one where we turn the page from syrupy sweet to we're going to be accessible and fun.
Yeah.
And I think that another one that was that kind of is in that same time period where they were working on them together is The Lion King, which was which was my first animated movie that I ever saw in a theater, and it is a technical masterpiece. I mean, it's a technical achievement, and it's fun, and that's the difference for me between that and the Grimm's fairy tale esque moral stories that we get in Disney prior to that.
Well, unfortunately, Disney's kind of done it poorly directly after that, and I feel like they've gotten some of that back. But like, there's the one with David Spade, where that was
Emperor's New Groove.
Yes, that one with the llama, and it was just like, that was a bad idea. That I see what you tried to do. You tried to take a formula and you tried to put it in there, and those parts are not equal. So it's not all good for there. But then we got Pixar, and then everything was good from there.
I was gonna say, luckily when they declined, Pixar kind of picked up the ball. And ran with it.
For sure.
So I think that's one of the, like, as well as just being, it's still funny today, and
hell yeah.
But it represents probably, it gave us Pixar, which gave me a lot of movies I really, really love. So Brett, tell me about the second one that fits that one for you.
Yeah, no, great call out. I think that was the fork in the road. This one I am listening in here just because it holds a ton of nostalgic value for me, but I guess I'm doing it a little bit haphazardly because I have not gone back to watch this movie in a long time. But growing up, An American Tail was
Fievel.
Yeah, not Fievel Goes West so much, but An American Tail was just a movie that I soaked up. I loved the idea of kind of the imagery being, something that imitated life because of the journey of this mouse, which was similar to immigrants, in American history, and
they're a Jewish
Spielberg
family.
was involved.
It is about the Jewish diaspora. That's incredible that you take that lens and don't even really hide it any. We're presenting it here.
No. The Fievel Mouskowitz is his name. That you can't be more deliberately Yiddish than that.
Yeah. And that was a Spielberg movie, right? Yeah.
Sure. Right. So I can always appreciate that. that same tone, because all of it, like Dave and I have talked about, the Spielberg just kind of palette works very well. And it felt like a more mature movie as a kid than I had seen in other animated films. So I thought like I was onto something or growing somehow because I was watching An American Tail.
Well, like Dave mentioned, it wasn't just saccharine, right? Like
not at all.
It had some meat to it.
Yeah. You chewed on scenery, on kind of the relationships that were built, etc. And there were still songs. So it to an average kid, you didn't necessarily think you were being jammed with anything other than what you typically get with a Disney film. But that wasn't all that it was. So
yeah.
That's a good shout.
So Brent, you brought up songs. I think for me, the two things, if I'm not just paying attention to story, which is where I go first typically, is what's the best story, the strongest story with the best dialogue. For me, animation is really defined by two things. First is the songs, and that's Disney's fault, because there's no reason why animation has to have songs.
Nope, but it probably should.
It almost always does, and the movies are almost always better for it. So the songs are one, and two, I was always fascinated by the technical piece of it. How does this happen? I was always very fascinated by, is this hand drawn? Is it not hand drawn? Is this computer? Is it not computer? Is this stop motion? Is it not stop motion? So those are the two big things for me. And Topher mentioned Nightmare Before Christmas. I am not a Tim Burton fan, but that movie to me is not about Tim Burton. It's about the technical mastery that it took to make that, because it looks great, and it's a stop motion claymation, almost fully claymation. I'm sure there were some computers along the way,
but for the most part, it's all maquettes.
Right, and the songs in it are super catchy, and that's a Danny Elfman.
Oh man,
I believe Danny Elfman score.
That soundtrack's amazing.
Yeah, and that's one of those movies.
And it's Danny Elfman who does all of the singing, and then it's not Danny Elfman that does the voice of Jack, which is kind of a bummer. And once you know that, they do sound like different people, and so you wonder why they didn't just have Danny Elfman.
You can never unhear it once you hear it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of those movies that, because it splits the holidays, I can put it on at Halloween, I can put it on at Christmas.
It's required watching in our house at both.
Yeah, and I can put it on when I go to bed and just listen to the music. If it's one of those comfort food kind of things. It was one of the 12 VHS tapes that we had when I was growing up. So I had another one listed in that kind of bucket, in the technical bucket, and that was the Lego Movie, which I thought was an insane technical achievement. So I wanted to make sure that I threw a shout out to that. I think it's a very that was on your list?
Yeah.
It's so I'll let you handle most of it, but it's a very funny movie. It's got Chris Pratt, and they bring in a lot of the wonderful Lego licenses and all the stuff that we like about Lego, and it was meta. But for me, it was the technical piece where I was trying to figure out
just astonishing
what's real and what's not, and what did they build, and how many Lego fanatics did it take to put that scene together or that scene together. So take it, Brent.
Yeah. No, I think that's why it ended up on my list too, is the technical aspect of it, but at the same time being just such a perfect movie, I think, for our generation, even though it was billed mostly as a kid's film. There's so many in-jokes laced throughout that movie, callbacks and references to certain things that happen and fly by off screen before you even realize. Also, one of the actresses that I'd previously mentioned on a PopNerdery podcast who is clearly underrated, Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman as a very meta version of Morgan Freeman.
Freeman.
Yeah. Will Arnett as the the graveliest of gravelly Batmans. It's such a perfect little piece of film, and it was hilarious and probably really springboarded Chris Pratt's movie career, even though he isn't on screen. So it's just fun, and it was done by the guys that are doing the Han Solo anthology film. It spawned a standalone Batman Lego film that's coming out in the same vein. Just really cool and fun. And as a lover of Legos and as a guy that went to see this movie with his kid, but appreciated it because I wasn't a kid. As much as my kid appreciated it because he was a kid, I love the Lego movie.
Yeah, and as a guy who had a Lego Millennium Falcon in his office until a couple of weeks ago, I loved how it commented on the toy itself and what it means what it means to be creative and what it means to actually physically build Lego, and whether or not you are following the directions or blazing your own trail. And,
Yes.
And that it talked about every part of it.
Yeah, and that it broke that wall. It broke the real world, movie world wall. It's a great movie.
Plus, I am a huge sucker for Will Ferrell, and every time Lord Business and/or the real life version of Will Ferrell ended up on my screen, I just giggle and grin from ear to ear a little bit.
What's not to like? So in that theme about kind of the breaking down the third wall, discussing that, the next one on my list is Incredibles, who probably does maybe one of the best meta superhero films I've ever seen, and actually treats both sides of the subject appropriately. Like, it's a very good kind of family drama. It's also an incredibly interesting superhero commentary, talking about like casting off of someone who desperately idolizes you who then ends up as a supervillain. Like, you could have pulled that from any of the major books of the time, and everyone would have gone, yep, that's totally feasible for a villain. And it treats both of them with incredible respect, and each story gets an appropriate amount of time. It's not just like it's a superhero backdrop for this family movie or vice versa. It's as someone who read a lot of comics and watched a lot of superhero things, like, this was very fun to kind of see, in the same way we like books that pull back that lens and show them as people and vice versa. Like, this, it's just basically like a love letter to superheroes.
Absolutely. I will always say that The Incredibles is the perfect Fantastic Four movie. It's almost
interesting, yeah.
It's what they should have done all along with the Fantastic Four. If you look at, obviously Jason Lee's supervillain character in that movie is very sympathetic, but he's a little bit hammy and over the top. But he's Dr. Doom in this equation. He's the guy that was a part of the family and was spurned because of his ambition, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, I absolutely love The Incredibles.
Well, and just like some of the stuff that they pulled directly out of Civil War about like registration, and we're going to start to there's so many different it's not like, the Lego movie has just tons of awesome fun jokes in it that are very much like, look over there, that's a funny thing.
Right.
This was almost like, you don't miss anything if you didn't spend a lot of time reading a lot of comics, but there's so much there that you go, that's Civil War, or like that's out of Year One, that's pulled out of this, Superman story. Like, they wove all that stuff together into a comprehensive universe that, it very much was a love letter to superheroes, and I'm in favor of that kind of thing. I'm sitting over here.
Yeah. Kind of in the same way that Toy Story was a love letter to all the classic toys that you grew up with, that was a love letter, because you had all these tiny references that don't mean anything to normal people, but like when they go to the woman who makes the superhero suits.
Right.
That was amazing, and that's a character that...
No capes.
That's no capes. That's a character that
could have... You shouldn't have capes.
Right. That's a character that could have not existed at all or been a throwaway, and it's one of the most memorable parts of that movie because it means something above and beyond just what the content of the dialogue was.
Exactly, and that's why I fell in love with that movie, and that's still probably maybe the movie I watch the most out of all the ones I put down on my list as I was kind of brain dumping here. I go back to that one pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Brett, do you have a third favorite on your list?
Actually, we covered all mine, and I was just going to echo that the Lego Movie is that for me. Like, that's a movie I think I can rewatch often, even though WALL-E is certainly kind of evergreen for me at this point in time. But oddly enough, and I don't have, big, grandiose arguments that I want to get into, but it's interesting to me how, as a father, The Incredibles doesn't work as a Pixar film the way that most of the rest of them do. And we can sit here and debate, violence on TV and stuff, but that movie just doesn't fit the rest of the themes of Pixar films in that same sense. But for me,
it's overly or more violent than the other ones.
Well, yeah, and it's just, I mean, like almost in a gratuitous way at times when you're sitting and watching it with a 3-year-old. That, and maybe that's just me, but like that movie,
I think that
movie
makes you
totally
a
works.
Good parent,
right? And it works. It works way better than I don't know. I can't even think of another example, but it works. It works fine for our age or a 20-something, and then none of that stuff would even matter. But just Pixar films don't all play to the same audience apparently, and that was my first realization.
I do think that it feels different than the others. Yeah. I feel like it feels slightly separate, that it was made whereas most Pixar movies are a fairly equal balance of jokes for kids and jokes for us. That one was slightly more skewed, jokes and references for us. I don't think I've ever noticed the violence, but I do remember the one scene where they're on the plane, and she's kind of screaming into the intercom, "There's a child here, there's a child here," and that's an intense scene for a kid. Now that I think back at it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Intense.
I took it as an opportunity to have a conversation about realism in the escapism of media with my 2.5-year-old. But I'm probably just a bad parent. Is the reality?
No.
Is that I'm just
not at all. Addressing it is better than just turning off the TV. Yeah. After it's done. Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I also play Assassin's Creed when the kid's like in the room doing something else. So, really, I'm just not winning any Father of the Month awards this month between those two things.
There's always April.
Therapy.
So,
April. Yeah, let's do April first, and then maybe therapy.
So my last one is one that I would also not show a child right away. But it was one that I had. It's not technically better than any of these movies we've talked about, but it is one that I wore out the VHS to when I was younger, and it is also, it toes the line between a movie for a child and a movie for at least like a late teen, and that's Transformers the movie, the animated movie from 1987. Don't ever go back and watch the Transformers cartoons. They're terrible. Don't ever watch the Michael Bay movies. They're terrible. Just watch this one thing. This one shining example of what Transformers was supposed to be. Transformers the movie from 1987. It is a movie that, and the best way to sell it is it has all of your favorite Transformers in it. It has a story that's adult enough for you to enjoy right now. The dialogue is so repeatable and hilariously bad at points. And the entire soundtrack is 80s hair metal. And it is fucking amazing.
And just the most metally of hair metal.
It's so good. It's so good. Weird Al is on it. So outside of Weird Al.
What?
There's one Weird Al song on the Transformers the movie soundtrack.
Oh, man.
It's Dare to Be Stupid. Dare to Be Stupid.
Yeah, the whole thing.
The whole thing. That's my last one on the list, because if I don't mention it, I'm pretty sure my dad, who bought me multiple copies of that VHS because I broke it, would have a slight issue. But yeah, that was a big one. Not technically better than any other one on this list. I won't argue that in any way, but I do think that even as an adult, totally worth a watch.
Yeah, well,
nice.
Dude, that's a lovely segue you just left me, because the last one on my list is is only a sentimental pick and has absolutely, well, I'm not going to say redeeming qualities, but yeah, it's not technically interesting. It's not groundbreaking storytelling like I thought The Incredibles was or Nightmare or anything else. It's Disney's Robin Hood.
Yes.
Fucking hands down, my favorite Disney movie. Like, you can get into the Pixar and everything else, but Disney's Robin Hood might actually be my favorite adaptation of that story. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Certainly better than Kevin Costner. Certainly better than Russell Crowe.
I mean, Prince of Thieves I own it only to laugh at it because that whole movie is just ridiculous top to bottom. Like Christian Slater in a Robin Hood movie? What are we doing here? It's awful and amazing. But Disney's Robin Hood truly was kind of the first, I think it was really the first Disney movie that I really latched onto, and it was probably an appropriate time to, show a boy that, because it's like Cinderella is great and I like the story and Snow White and everything else, and all of a sudden it's like, yes, let's do a little bit of some Robin Hood type stuff here.
Let's shoot some arrows. Let's
do it.
Let's absolutely play with a snake and have it, be silly and goofy. And I think because of the same stuff that we talked about earlier where Aladdin worked, Jungle Book worked, there is comedy in there, absolutely. Yep. And there are set pieces in that movie that you don't get anywhere else. And actually, since one of mine was stolen, Dave, you big jerk, I'll go ahead and throw another one in here and give Disney some additional credit. Because I'm with you, Toph. Robin Hood was one of the first ones that I latched onto, but almost at the exact same time I latched onto the Jungle Book.
They're very similar in my mind. Like, you could tell me that you took Baloo out and then dressed him as Little John, and it seems like a one-to-one character representation there. So
yeah, Little John and Baloo, I would probably be confused if I heard either of them talking on another one's body.
Precisely.
And they both have a snake, which is drawn exactly the same, but only talks a little bit different. And it's both of those movies have very, memorable songs for me.
You have Louis Prima doing a song in a Disney movie. Like, that's unheard of. That's like beyond a level of cool that you're going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think it's easy for us to say in a conversation about animation all of these other examples and say, well, that was Disney, or it's Disney and it was saccharine, or it was Disney and it was too sweet. And we do have to recognize the fact that none of this really happens without Disney.
Yes.
Especially when we're talking about American animation, and that they kind of perfected the formula of taking a public domain story and turning it into something else, and anthropomorphizing animals.
Yes.
We're the first ones to really kind of do that and do it well.
I think so, right? Because I just don't see another medium where that would have been viable as a storytelling device.
Well, and I think Kermit the Frog probably owes a lot to Disney. Jim Henson in general probably owes a lot to Disney.
Yeah.
Having seen some of that stuff. I do want to throw out one lesser-known Disney movie that was always huge for me. I always loved The Great Mouse Detective, which was a Sherlock.
I almost called my shot there. Called my shot.
It was essentially a Sherlock Holmes story. It's great.
Doing Ratigan?
It's great. It is great. You could watch that now, and the animation still looks good. If you replace the mouse, the Sherlock mouse with Batman, and you replace the Watson mouse with Alfred, and you replace Ratigan with the Joker, it is a great Batman detective story. I'm not
I haven't seen that movie in forever. I need to go back and watch it.
It's actually insane. He's not just I'm a villain. He's actually crazy.
Yes.
Bent on revenge against the Great Mouse Detective, and doesn't really care. His caper is only secondary to humiliating him.
Right.
He wants to take over England, but the big objective is it fits those archetypes almost perfectly.
It's great.
Vincent Price.
And
yes, it was Vincent fucking Price.
It was the first time in a movie when I saw detective work. And I was like, oh man, if I do a crime, the Great Mouse Detective is going to
He'll come and he'll fuck your shit up. That mice will find you, son. Like, he's going around that toy shop, and there's the bat with the whole thing is so good.
With the peg leg. My point is that there are some Disney gems, and we can't overlook them just because it's not necessarily cool for a bunch of guys in their 30s to talk about Disney for a segment.
Says you.
Yeah, we're all having a laugh here. If any of the things that we named, that happened without Snow White and Cinderella, and some of those things that really set the basis for where American animation has gone and will hopefully continue to go. Because actually, I think a lot of the films we named have happened in the last 25 years, basically. So
yeah.
We're doing pretty good right now. We just keep making those.
Especially considering we've been doing this since the mid-30s.
Right? Production was slower then. Let's go with that. So, folks, we want to hear what your favorite animated movies are. We want to know what we left out via either glaring omission or simply because you have bad taste. I'm sure it's not the latter. So, be sure to write in and tell us what we missed by glaring omission. But we want to know what your favorite animated movies are and how much you agree with me that Tim Burton is an American just goddamn hero. And with that,
shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
God damn it. You're all the worst. Throw it to commercial.
Today's show is brought to you by Amazon. Go to PopNerdery.com/Amazon and shop just like you normally would. Get the same Amazon products that you know and love, and you can even support the show.
So, for instance, when you're doing your weekly 11-inch pewter wizard collectible shopping, you can go straight through the PopNerdery.com/Amazon link, shop like you normally would.
It's perfect. Pop Nerdery is part of the Amazon Associates program, which means you get the same selection, the same tragically low prices of the Amazon that you know and love. And if you're a Prime member, you get the same Prime 2-day shipping that you normally would get. Plus, you support Pop Nerdery, and that's it. It seems pretty basic.
What's not basic is deciding whether Stormborn the Warbringer goes on the left, and Drawswith the Hated goes on the right. And which one of them is finally going to get that coveted middle spot? That's complicated. This is easy.
Exactly. None of this is complicated. Bookmark PopNerdery.com/Amazon in your favorite browser today, and remember, click it every time you shop. And hello. That will bring us to the end of the Pop Nerdery Podcast. Thank you all for listening. We have just one last thing to kind of wrap up. It's our recommendation section. These are items that we think each other need to be up on a little bit more, or you, the listeners, should definitely take a dive into. So I will throw to Dave first to talk about his recommendations for the week. David, what you got, buddy?
So I know that you guys are neophytes, and you guys do not have next-gen video gaming systems, nope. But when you come over to my place the next time that happens, we are going to fire up my Xbox One, and we are going to play a game called Rocket League. This is a thing that
I've heard this. I've heard about this. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so this is a thing that you guys know about. It is crazy popular in video game circles. So if there's a person who is a video gamer, I'm not telling them anything new. But our favorite son, our best listener, our best buddy,
Blanket
Carl
Dog?
Destroyer.
Oh, Carl the Destroyer, yes.
Blanket Dog.
He is the one. So after Blanket Dog, Carl the Destroyer is our best listener.
I love you, Carl.
He got me into this game, and there is a nerd spin, so I'll get there. But the premise of this game is you play 3-on-3, your 3 cars against their 3 cars, and it's essentially like a bunch of Hot Wheel cars. You get to choose between a bunch of different body styles. And you get turbo boosts, and you can jump in the air and do double spins, and essentially what you're doing is you're playing soccer with cars. And if you've ever watched Top Gear, they did this in real life, and this is so much better than that. So much better. And if you've ever been a person who plays FIFA or plays Madden, and you like jump up and fist pump when you score a goal online against somebody, or you score a touchdown online against, this is a much better feeling because it's so much cooler. It's so much cooler when you're streaking out of nowhere and jump up and do a double jump front flip with your Hot Wheel car and bicycle, like front bicycle heel kick the ball into the giant car soccer league goal. So this is Rocket League, and the way that I'm going to make this nerd is that they have a couple of different pieces of DLC that you guys will be interested in. This actually, we are recording this on a Tuesday, so today they released the Batman vs. Superman Batmobile DLC.
Oh, shit.
So you can play this game as the new Ben Affleck Batmobile, and when you score a goal, it shoots like a bat signal up into the air.
Perfect.
Wow.
And the one that I've been playing with for the last couple of weeks is the Back to the Future DeLorean DLC.
Also sexy.
That's fun.
So it is the attention to detail on these like nerd cars that they put into this game are insane. So first of all, it is the Back to the Future DeLorean from the end of Back to the Future 1 and the beginning of Back to the Future 2. So it has the Mr. Fusion in the back. It has the kind of like the piping up the side, and there's an animation where, like, if your car gets blasted and destroyed by another car, there's a different animation for every car design. And for the DeLorean, it is the streaking flames and the spinning license plate.
Nice.
That are in the movie. So they could have just like shit out a terrible looking DLC, and instead you can tell that this game is made by nerds with love for nerd properties. They put out a quality piece of DLC for my $1.99, and Rocket League on the Xbox One. The game itself costs $20, which is cheaper than almost any other Xbox One game you're going to get. And it's a perfect game to sit around and drink with your friends and either play online or like Carl and I just trade off the controller and we play and high-five each other like crazy when we score goals. It's great. It's great.
Yes.
So sell me on why I want to play this instead of Mario Kart, which is my go-to if I want that world.
This is like, it's like if you took Mario Kart, the fun of Mario Kart, and combined it with the feeling that you get when your favorite soccer team scores a goal or your favorite football team scores a touchdown. It's because you're waiting and waiting and waiting for it to happen. So the build-up and the tension is such that when it happens, it is like an explosion where you're just like, yeah.
Nice.
That's the best way I can sell it. Is when your team finally does score a goal, and usually, the other benefit is the games are only 5 minutes long, so you can play a bunch of games in a row. Mm-hmm. And usually in 5 minutes, there's 5-6 goals between the two teams, and it's crazy fun. Sometimes you get absolutely murdered by a team that plays together all the time, and sometimes you're pooping on folks and you're just crushing them all day.
Just shitting
on people. So it's a very, very fun game. There's not a whole lot of depth to it. It's just pure fun.
Nice. I like it. I'll have to wait for my invite to be extended. Absolutely. So that I can come over and do that. What about you, Toph? What are you looking at recently?
So, as some of our international listeners may or may not know, shout out to all of our international listeners.
Our Croatian friend
Dubrovik.
Yeah.
Dobby. Shout out to Dobby. We are clenched tightly in an election cycle's asshole, as I think we could probably, everything's bad. However, the one good thing to come out of this election cycle has been Killer Mike being on TV a lot more than, say, ever before in the history of Killer Mike.
Always a good thing.
As someone who once saw Killer Mike and Outkast on the Stankonia tour at the Fort Wayne Coliseum in 2000,
nice.
Good decision. I'm going to recommend Run the Jewels 1 and 2. Killer Mike is half of Run the Jewels, along with LP. They have 2 albums. 3, if you count Meow the Jewels, in which various famous superstar producers put together an album recreating the beats, made nothing without it, just with cat sounds, and recreated it. Meow the Jewels. And we're talking like Swizz Beatz, like producers you've actually like have really heard of. Not like some friends they got together and did this. Like, no. Like, it was for charity, so they got just a fucking shit ton of money. Because, when you make a joke about Run the Jewels and cats, the internet will pony up like crazy. So Meow the Jewels is a thing too. But Killer Mike is stumping for Bernie Sanders, however you feel about the candidate or anything else. More Killer Mike on my television is a good thing, which leads me to listen to more Run the Jewels, which is a great thing. So, Run the Jewels 1 and 2. Available on Amazon Prime Music, if you got that Prime account, streaming for free on the Spotify's, or available to purchase at your local independent record store.
Beautiful.
I love it. Okay, for me, I am in the throes right now of NFL offseason. If any of our Pop Nerdery listeners have chimed in or taken a peek at my Twitter account, they've probably quickly run away, questioning why they ever stopped in. I am a huge NFL fan. It's essentially the only reason I ever started tweeting on a regular basis. I had the account which sat vacant, and I made jokes about the word tweet for 3 years until I realized that NFL Twitter was a thing. And so I am in the throes of speculating on NFL free agency, NFL draft, all that stuff. And one of the greatest resources that I have discovered, and I think has a dorky element to it, is a website called Over the Cap. And the guy that runs it is Jason @Jason_OTC. If you are a fan of an NFL football team, or even if you are just watching to see what ridiculous, gobs of money are being thrown at names of people who overindulge in HGH, you would love to probably know how much these guys are really making instead of just the numbers that get reported by the media and touted by ESPN. So I would strongly suggest becoming familiar with this website. Over the Cap will work their asses off basically to get all of the real numbers instead of just the overinflated monies that get reported when your team signs somebody and you think they're making way too damn much, or the guy that you thought your team could have paid equal amount, you'll go see that no, they prorated all the money into signing bonuses in this year, and you wouldn't be able to do it. So if you like numbers, if you like sports business at all, I think Over the Cap is a great resource. I do believe they have counterparts for non-NFL leagues as well. So Over the Cap OTC is a great resource. So
I'm looking at it right now, and this is the best and most nerdy the NFL could possibly get, and this is right up my alley. Right up my alley.
Yes. Nerd.
If you are a nerd, you like numbers, and you like football, it is a perfect little amalgam.
It hits that sweet spot in that Venn diagram of this is you, this is your interest, and this website. Is that just right there, right in the fucking middle?
Oh yeah,
exactly. There's all these sortable fields and numbers that you never thought would have ever been calculated when the numbers are so clean and have a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
There's a lot of non-zeros on this, so it's good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, this was a fun episode. I think we talked a little bit. I did less arguing than I expected, based on some of Toph's reactions last week to.
That's what I got you for your
Wally
birthday.
call out.
This is what I got you for your birthday. Was not arguing with you about Wally.
We can all admit it's just because I made too damn much sense and you backtracked because you realized you were wrong.
Now you're gonna do it. Birthday present rescinded.
But friends of Pop Nerdery, thank you for coming. Thanks for stopping by. Please come again when we get into episode 16, and we'll have some new headlines for you, some new deep dives, new recommendations, but the same old finger guns.
Finger guns.
Finger guns.
go to the finger guns place where we finger guns?
Were your finger guns also finger gunsing?
Kyle was
I just outright skipped the Twitter.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
That's all right.
Carl was really pissed after the last episode. He texted me and was like, "What? No after credits? There's no after credits, you asshole!" And I was like, well, we recorded really fast, and I didn't have anything to put.
You're not promised with an after credits. Like after credits is like Christmas. It just shows up sometimes.
I know, and if I give it every time, then it's almost like I'm spoiling the people.
You know what?
No.
You know what? We'll talk about it in the next one. It's like flowers for your lady.
Mm-hmm.
If you
don't
give it
ever
to
buy
her
them to her
every time she expects it, you don't get any credit for buying them anymore.